Make a hot cuppa and relax. It's Afternoon Karak with Aisha Al-Mazmi and Mikhail Atiyah
on Pulse 95.
Some of the biggest filmmakers, the Russo Brothers, you know them for directing movies such as Avengers Endgame and the Captain America Civil War, are now working on their own personal projects using their own production companies. And one that we actually talked about a while back, it was the movie The Gray Man, which was based on the books itself, and that they were hoping to create a whole new sort of like spy action franchise, their own sort of James Bond franchise. And in a recent panel, the CCPX panel, they've went on to talk more about it. They've shared some details, some plans on when are they going to start filming and who are going to be starring the movie itself, which is going to be Chris Evans and Ryan Gosling, our little man crush here on the Afternoon Karak.
Oh, definitely, both of them.
And also a little bit of details about the Extraction sequel, which was Netflix's big action flick of the summer. We reviewed it here on the Afternoon Karak. If you didn't get the chance, you can find it up on our podcast and as well as our YouTube. No, actually, we did it before.
No, we did.
Yeah.
It was one of the first things we streamed on our YouTube. I remember that.
Okay, Extraction review.
Was it actually? No, actually, no.
We reviewed it during lockdown.
Yes,
so we didn't have YouTube back then.
Yes.
So you can find it up on our SoundCloud.
On our SoundCloud, on our Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you listen to podcasts. But however, we spoke about The Gray Man. That was one of the first streamed videos ever.
Yes.
I confused them with each other. So it just tells you that this has been in the works for quite a while. The idea, for both ideas actually, the thing with Extraction is that we heard here and there that they're planning on some sort of franchise. They're going to keep on going. We don't want to ruin the movie, but it did end with a question mark.
Sort of ambiguous.
Exactly. So there is a chance for a sequel, which is why they're saying that it could be actually a prequel, which makes a lot of sense because we don't know much about the main character that was played by Chris Hemsworth. We fall like straight into the whole action scenes, which makes sense. That's how action movies usually play out. And it's only later that we usually get to know more about the characters with a sequel or a prequel, so it makes sense. As for The Gray Man, it's an action thriller that follows a former CIA operative turned freelance assassin called Court Gentry, who is also known as The Gray Man, who is going to be played by Ryan Gosling, and he's going to be chased around the world by his former CIA cohort, Lloyd Hansen, played by Chris Evans, and I'm already super excited for it.
Just so thrilled. I cannot wait for this. I mean, I love spy movies in general, but the fact that they're going for a franchise tells you that they're trying to build these new and original and very creative universes of just movies that people can enjoy. And all we know for now, The Gray Man is still in development. Not a lot of details besides the synopsis and what they're planning to do with that franchise.
Yeah.
But for Extraction 2, they're hoping to actually start filming next fall, trying to grab Chris Hemsworth from just his schedule, because I'm sure he's a busy actor. So
with the MCU.
Oh, definitely.
And even with Chris Evans has a lot more time now, but even Ryan Gosling, there's a good chance that he's super busy with a lot of other movies as well. I mean,
we know him. He's working at Universal Studios for the upcoming werewolf sort of reboot of some kind.
Exactly. So he's probably has a lot on his plate, which is why it's just still in production. And I don't think the Russo Brothers want to put too much on their plate with too many movies at a time, especially since both of them are very action heavy packed and they're going to be franchises. So it's all about planning out the entire movies, but excitement all around right here on the Afternoon Karak. Coming up next, we've got a lot more to talk about. Stay tuned for that. We're going to be moving on to talk about Netflix now, because it's all about The Crown and people thinking that The Crown should probably have a disclaimer claiming that it is a fictional piece of work and not based on true history events. Let's talk about that. Coming up next right here on Pulse 95.
Pulse 95.
I think this segment, we're going to dedicate it to Anna Schofield of Yellow Home, because she is a massive fan of The Crown. I tried to watch it 3 years ago when it first came out. I love my historical, dramas. I love my historical fiction. but they just lost me at some point. I just got bored
Really?
from the first season. I'm not saying it's a bad show, especially with the latest show that is venturing towards the 80s and the whole Prince Charles and Princess Diana thing.
There's like a chronological development.
Exactly. And this part, I believe, is, or this part of the series is, I'd say, is the most exciting out of the entire show. So it's not surprising that it's garnering a lot of controversy, both positive publicity and also the negative kind, because there are people who are saying or claiming that Netflix should put a warning that says that The Crown isn't, it's fictional, nothing historically accurate about it. However, Netflix goes down and says, no, we're not going to do that. It's not an act of fiction.
It's very interesting that this, out of all times, has just become a problem, and that there's prominent figures in Britain saying to Netflix, please put a fictional disclaimer. Specifically, there's a man named Oliver Dowden. He's a culture secretary in Britain, who goes on to say that The Crown is a beautifully produced and acted drama, but Netflix should really put a disclaimer that says that this is a work of fiction. And Netflix has put a statement on Saturday. They said, we have always presented The Crown as a drama, and we have every confidence our members understand it's a work of fiction. Here's the thing. It's 4 seasons now in The Crown, and now this is being brought up. Is it because that for the last 3 seasons, the characters, the royal family has always been depicted as glamorous, as vital, but this one particular season that covers the story of Princess Diana, there is controversy. It's not an easy story to talk about.
Exactly.
And it could go down the line where things are a bit gray and things, it might bring a bit of bad reputation to the royal family, and it's because of that now it's like, put a fictional disclaimer, because people might think this actually happened or historically is true. That's
what I believe, and especially since like I said, I believe this season is what's getting all the viewership in regards to people watching it and its popularity. I'm not saying it wasn't popular, pretty much have been popular for quite a while, but I believe that this season in particular had stories and characters, such as even Margaret Thatcher, that are basically driving people towards the TV show itself and piqued people's interest. So people are like, okay, we'd like to watch it. So that's when perhaps they're like, no. This is when we should say that it's an act of imagination and that there's no truth to it. But even the show's creator himself says that it's, everybody knows that The Crown is a mixture of both actual research and some imagination thrown here and there, and that's expected, because when you're depicting any sort of historical drama, you have to fill in the gaps where people never reported or spoke about. Not most people have memoirs out or autobiographies that you can completely base an entire story on. So a lot of times you need to okay, what were they doing between these couple of months? What were they doing at home? What were they doing during certain celebrations? What is happening here and there besides the main events and activities that we've heard about, whether it's on the news or again in different or various autobiographies and memoirs. And even memoirs are not comprehensive. Autobiographies are the ones that talk from the person's beginning of their lives all the way till the end of it. A memoir usually depicts a certain part of that person's life. So there might be several memoirs about Princess Diana maybe. Or maybe there are no memoirs about Prince Charles. Like there's an autobiography there, some stuff there. So it's just, again, common sense that most of it is going to be as accurate as they can get it to be, and the rest is going to be a work of imagination.
All I know is that season 4 of The Crown is hype. I might have to watch it if it's getting this much of, bad and good reception, honestly.
I mean, I think it's also Netflix is pushing it, and they're advertising it everywhere. I believe they have some sort of exhibition with some of the clothes that were in The Crown. So I think that also contributed to its popularity. What do you guys think? Text us 4215 or we'd love to hear from you. Tell us, do you think that this is a good idea? Should they add a warning at the beginning, or it's just common sense that this is obviously a work of fiction? Tell us all about it. We're going to be taking a short break. We have a Marvel rumor featuring none other than Leonardo DiCaprio. Stay tuned for that right after the sports headlines.
Speculation, gossip, or hoax. Rumor has it.
If there is one name that I cannot for the life of me imagine in the MCU, it is Leonardo DiCaprio. But according to this rumor, he hasn't ruled out appearing in one. He might be in talks and discussions with Marvel Studios for an unspecified MCU role.
That is a really crazy thing to actually consider, because Leo is, he's a great actor. He's been in that industry since he was a child, and for all the movies and the big blockbuster films he's done, the only action-based movie I've ever seen him in would be Inception. That I would say that's as action-packed as he's ever done.
Yeah.
Everything else was usually a drama, a mockumentary, a thriller of some kind. But to be involved in a franchise, that would actually, that means like continuously seeing him in future movies. That's really going to be new for Leo. Honestly.
I think that if he ever does take on a role in the MCU, it's going to be a one-time role, maybe a villain, or even, honestly, if he really wants to appear in a superhero movie, I think he might even appear as just as a cameo, maybe even as himself, as Leonardo DiCaprio. But I don't see him as anything recurring.
So not like a lead role, maybe a supporting character.
Again, even as a lead role, it's going to be a villain, a one-time villain that's khalas. So he's gone. I mean, he gets, killed,
So not even, you wouldn't even see him as a superhero at all?
No, I really don't see him as a superhero. And again, if we see him as a superhero in the MCU, it is a recurring character. It is somebody who has to, just like you said, be prepared to sign off their life for the next 10 years, to be fully committed to the MCU, because we don't know what happens in the upcoming phases, and now we have TV shows, so he might be involved in these here and there. So it's a big commitment. But according to this rumor, they also note that a lot of big names in Hollywood had already sat down and spoken to Kevin Feige, so it's not something that is so weird and out of the blue. It's just that, just keep in mind that he might join if he finds the right role for himself within the MCU. Then he will do it. Otherwise, then he will not. And again, lots of names were mentioned, lots of rumors here and there. This person is tied to the MCU, this person is tied to the MCU, but none of them have been fruitful. So Leonardo DiCaprio is just another name up there in the clouds that might happen or might not happen. It's just literally in the middle. It's just like, Leo, hey, do you want to have dinner tonight? And we can talk about a potential role. I've got several roles you want to take into consideration. He was like, yeah, cool. So that could be just the extent of the rumor, to be honest.
You're probably right, because Leo he's a very selective actor. He doesn't just want to be in any kind of movie.
Especially lately. He hasn't been in any, he just goes into those massive movies, like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Revenant, and
Wolf of Wall Street.
Wolf of Wall Street. I think Wolf of Wall Street was when he started becoming a lot more selective and we stopped seeing him. He's been more about philanthropy and working within that scope rather than actually acting and being active within Hollywood as an actor. So we'll just need to wait and see. Maybe it will take time for us to accept him within the MCU, but obviously we're going to welcome him in with big, wide arms. Coming up next, we're going to be talking about the Game Awards. Now, some of the presenters have been announced, and so many things, including potential new games at the beginning of the showcase. So stay tuned for that and much more right here on the Afternoon Karak.
This is Pulse 95.
You might as well mark your calendar for December 10th. It's going to be a really big day. Cyberpunk 2077 is going to be released worldwide. But even more important is the Game Awards 2020. It's going to be a little bit different this time, but just as big, because they're going to be pre-showing about 5 world premieres. World premieres, when you hear that term, that means that this is going to be a first time, never before seen, never before announced kind of thing. And it could be gameplay footage, it could be a teaser for something that you've been waiting for a very long time. And one thing I've been invested in.
Oh God, I know.
It's Silent Hill. We've come this far. I'm willing to wait 3 more days and we'll see what's going to be. For now, it's just going to be speculations.
You're holding on to it really badly.
Just know that if it does happen, I'll be here, with a smile on my face, ready to talk all about it.
I think that's not going to happen until at least some point in 2021, maybe, if we're being hopeful. I think that Konami might be a bit too busy right now, but who knows? We'll just wait and see. I mean, those are 5 game premieres. That means it could be literally anything. I'm hoping to see something about Breath of the Wild too. At least just a little bit, any small thing, honestly.
I think so, yeah. I think enough time has passed since the teaser trailer that we might see more information about that.
Exactly.
Also, maybe Nintendo Switch Pro could finally get its debut of some kind.
Could happen.
We're getting close to February, which is the presumed date of its...
Yeah, they believe that it could have... I mean, it's still rumors right now, but we believe that it might be appearing or making some sort of appearance in the markets around the first quarter of 2021. So we'd say around February, March. That would make more sense. Maybe at the latest, perhaps April. So we'll just need to wait and see. As for the presenters, a lot of people were very confused as to why they're actually getting Hollywood presenters to be, presenting the games. I think what they're doing, rightfully so, they're trying to get people to watch because it's hard to stream something, especially look at the MTV Awards, and all these big awards have already happened. And honestly, I know that a lot of people, anyway, they watch them on TV, and it's not like a lot of people attend them. But at the same time, it's the whole hype of it.
Trying to generate mass appeal.
Exactly. I mean, they're trying to get people to watch it. So it makes sense that they're trying to push some of the lots of Hollywood names. But I think rightfully so, we've got Brie Larson because she is actually a massive, massive Metroid fan. So it makes sense that as a massive video game fan who's also has been hoping that she actually ends up playing the main character from Metroid. So it makes sense that she's part of it. There's also some of the industry giants such as Reggie Fils-Aimé, who is the previous CEO or the director of Nintendo. So it's great to see all these names. I'm super excited about it. I think it's going to be one of the few live-streamed events of this year that I'm going to be watching, to be honest.
Yeah, we missed out on E3, so Game Awards is going to definitely be an event worth watching. And guys, again, mark it on your calendars, December 10th. Mm-hmm. And if you still have time, go to Game Awards official website and vote for your game.
Vote for Hades.
Vote for Hades.
Vote for Hades for every single thing.
Or
it
vote for
to
Game of the Year, whichever.
Hades.
All right.
I'm starting a campaign. You guys have 3 more days to vote, and I'm telling you, vote for Hades.
Best of luck.
Best of luck to Hades. They deserve to win. Vote for Hades. Coming up next, some Star Wars news. Why did George Lucas, I always like to call him George Lucas, why did he sell Lucasfilms? He finally reveals why, and it might be a bit bittersweet and maybe, some catharsis to all of his followers and fans of the franchise. So stay tuned for that.
This is Pulse 95.
Any fan of Star Wars, whenever they think of the franchise, there's always this bittersweetness to it, and it's what we think about the great trilogy, the questionable prequel, and now the controversial new trilogy. There's a rise and fall to Star Wars, and we all feel as fans, we always want closure. We always want to know what exactly happened behind the scenes, and we always kind of look at George Lucas. I feel bad for this guy. He has to live with a lifetime of just disappointing, just a huge fan base as big as Star Wars. But he has recently went on an interview talking about why he sold his Star Wars franchise to Disney, and it's something that is actually kind of understandable. It's sincere. He says at the time I was starting to work on the next trilogy, which was the prequel. We're talking back in 1995. And back then, he realized that he was going to take about 10 years to develop this trilogy. And it was true because the production for the prequels went on from 1995 all the way to 2005. And around that time, he just had his daughter was born, And he says that I've always considered working on the new trilogy, and there was a time when of course, there was even the scripts about his Star Wars, I think 7, 8, and 9. That was talked about years ago. But around 2012, he says I was 69 years old, and the question became, is that can I keep doing this for the rest of my life? And he actually said this time, he's like, no, I don't think I can. And finally, he's decided to raise his daughter and just retire from working on the franchise.
And it makes sense because lately we found out about his initial plans. So he did have a whole plan for this trilogy completely ready. And he was, like he said, he was talking to the actors and actresses. He was gearing up for it. But then around 2012, just like you said, he obviously decided to stick with his family because it took him from 1995 till 2005 to work on episode 1, 2, and 3. And even though he said that he let his, director and the producer to work on it, who he claims were good friends of his, and he trusted completely, he said he still found himself at the set, and he found out that he's the type who wants to control everything.
He's like a micromanager.
Exactly. He even admitted that. He said, I am the micromanaging type. So it makes sense that he stepped away, but I believe that even though he has, I wouldn't say he had some regrets, but he's a bit upset about what happened to the trilogy. But it's something he has to live with. And if you're a true Star Wars fan, you'd also understand this decision. It's not easy to make, to decide to leave your baby for a new baby, because they're both their babies, and you don't want to have to pick between your two children. But he had to, and he chose his actual daughter. And again, he was 69 years old. That is not an easy age, especially if you're going to raise a baby. And he, mashallah, he had the energy to do it. And he knew that he had to make some compromises. And, great for him. Good for him that he decided to do that. So, honestly, I respect it. I understand that. And I feel bad for all the comments I made when I'm like, it's all your fault, George Lucas. It is his fault, per se. But we can't blame him for it at the end of the day.
Certainly. I hope this gives closure to fans of Star Wars and just sort of like a respectable nod to the father of the whole franchise. And just let him retire at peace. Let him take care of his family. He has his own priorities.
Exactly.
And all we can hope is that Disney has learned from this huge disaster, and Aisha's shaking her head.
I mean, Disney is going to be Disney. I love Disney, don't get me wrong, but it's Disney is going to be Disney.
There's a lot of expectations to fulfill in the near future when it comes to future Star Wars films. But until then, we're going to have to just wait and see. We're going to be taking a bit of a break. And speaking of closure, we got one more segment to close off the afternoon Karak with a final suggestion. So stay tuned.
It's almost 5 p.m.
That was Afternoon Karak. For dessert,
Aisha and Mikhail suggest.
It's been a great hour here on the Afternoon Karak, and if you missed out on any of our discussions, be sure to tune in to our YouTube episodes up on Pulse 95 Radio, as well as all of our socials, SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Just write Afternoon Karak, and you'll be good to go. We're going to be wrapping up the hour with a final suggestion, this time a courtesy of Aisha Almazmi.
So, obviously, just like everybody else, I'm an avid online shopper, especially with Black Friday and especially with the pandemic. So, you'd rather just buy things online. It's much easier to do that. So, what's been happening is that sometimes I'd hesitate because I'm like, do I want to buy from this place? It's really hard to return things, especially if I'm buying something overseas. So, it becomes an issue of, does this fit me or not? And I can't see it physically, obviously, for me to judge. And sometimes when it's not in UK or US sizes, and especially since I personally know my UK size, but I don't know my US size sometimes. They size it differently. The conversion is weird. Sometimes it's European size. Sometimes it's Italian. Sometimes it's just Asian size. There's Japanese, Chinese, and it's like question mark. What
all these
size?
Metrics.
Exactly. And sometimes you cannot really convert them from one place to another. Sometimes it's just small, medium, large. And I'm like, what does that even mean? So what I started doing is that the other day I bought something from Zara online. So from there, I realized what my size is. I'm like, okay, so this is my size. This is how it works. This is my sweatpant size. This is my top size. So what I did is I just noted down the actual measurements, because if you go towards the sizing chart, the size guide of Zara, you'd find the actual numbers. And then I wanted to buy something else from Bershka. And I'm like, what are my sizes? So I went back to my Zara sizes, used that as my guide, and I'm like, okay, so this is my size in Bershka. And this is what I started doing, that I just have my saved sizes, whether it's on my notes or just literally just go to your previously ordered list and go through it and check your sizes and be like, okay, this would be my go-to guide. So my suggestion is to have all these sizes somewhere saved on your phone, on a paper or something, and use those as a guide so that you know for sure what are your measurements, your inches and centimeters. So when you go to another site to buy from there, you are good to go. And with that, we're also good to go right here on the Afternoon Karak as we pave the way for none other than the amazing Big Hass and Anna Schofield at Yalla Home, picking up the show from 5 p.m. all the way till 8 p.m. right here on Pulse 95.
If you liked this episode of Afternoon Karak, drop a like and subscribe.
Pulse 95.
Be sure to follow us on Instagram for all our daily updates and top stories.